Hi, my name is Dejan Bogdanovic. Oh, okay, forgot about the detail, the microphone. Hi, my name is Dejan Bogdanovic, and I work for Volta Networks, and we spend a lot of time thinking about, how to do better network management and service orchestration. Because one of the things is that I learned it's easy to build a product, but it's hard to manage a network and integrate the new products into. So we are hearing more and more about network automation. You saw a few presentations that talked a lot about the benefits of that, and it is what it is, but still, according to some information that the market research organizations are providing, is that 70% still use manual CLI-based network configuration. On the other hand, if you will start using the network automation, you can reduce, some of your errors by 50%. And this is an interesting stat because when I was working at my previous employer, we had an SDK for the devices, and they loved writing specialized CLI applications using that SDK because they were saying, well, we are just exposing all of the commands that we need in order to provision the new things. So the key thing when you are doing is about you need different data models, and the vendors will provide you a lot of device models, but for you the key things is, I believe, are the service models. There is plenty of data models, but very few service models. And there is a little bit more explanation about the data model classification in the RFC 8199, which says and how they're more being classified. But the idea is that you can create essentially network device models and then combine them into different service models. And these models both are technical models. You have your own business models, but the technical service models are pretty important because they can simplify the provisioning of your of the services on the network. And in this talk today, I will be talking more about the red layer and the service models and why it makes it easier to manage a network using the service models. A comparison to the car is, if you want to build a car, well, you can build the engine from all the devices, or you can use the engine and put the same engine in many different car models. So you can have, like the same 4-cylinder engine across 6 different models and 3 different brands. And for the car industry, that is essentially that speeds up their manufacturing because they are saying, oh, we will be putting up models together that will satisfy our end customer from the common parts. The networks, how they're managed today, is mainly managed, as a collection of the devices. And what we believe is that with network automation, it will be much more easier to migrate from a device management essentially to the network service management. That you can essentially have a fixed network and then overlay it with different services that each one can be easily individually managed, as well as monitored. The idea is that you will be able, to directly change the state of your network, for each, indicated service. You will not do configuration managements. It will be, oh, I have, this is the configuration just for this customer, or actually this is the provisioning information just for this customer, which was translated into the state, and then you can manage the state for that service. And the idea with the young data models is that you can essentially load just those models, and those models will create a schema for you, and you can then drive the APIs out of that schema. You can modify it according to your business requirements as well as to your end user requirements. There are tons of models out there, but it's mainly driven by vendors, and some of them, are driven by, the operators. So being, getting more input from the operators on the service model development would be, really helpful. And the idea is that the more choices you have, it will be easier for you to achieve, the final goal, because using the tools, you're just loading a different schema, and with the different schemas, you can have, different APIs that are answering your requirements. I will here use an example of an L2VPN data model. So this is a fairly simplified data model out of the whole functionality that you can, get, but this is sort of the minimum information with which you can start creating the L2VPN services. If you would view it, and develop and deploy it on a device level, you would have to put, most of this information in. Some of that, can be system generated, but let's say, and this is usually how you do it today, you're entering the, you're entering the information in, and you have to specify it. If you would, use a network automation with topology discovery, when you have the topology discovery, you are getting your neighbor peering informations, and in that case, some of the information can be retrieved from the network state. So in this, example was just like, oh, my neighbor, I'm retrieving my neighbor information in order to build up the service. And this is one of the most frequent errors is that verifying was the IP address or was some of the parameters exactly typed in. If you have the topology, already discovered and you have it as the topology state, you can easily verify once you build your network, service schema, if that information is correct that you're passing it in. And once you verify it, and once you verify that information, you can pass it, and then with a high confidence, have the result of the service creation, that you really wanted to achieve. And in short, that would be it. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Ignas Bagdonas, Equinix. Two questions, one trivial and one hard. Talking about your example of VPLS, there might be different flavors of how that is implemented. BGP one, LDP one, static one if I'm crazy enough, EVPN and similar types. Trying to do one model which tries to cover all of those options, does it really seem practical? What about having two layers of service models? One, which is technology domain service model, which deals with abstraction above network elements, for example, of a particular flavor of VPLS or VPN, and provides a no-bound interface to what you describe as a layer 2 VPN service model.
So in my slide here, I was talking about the technical service model. And the technical service model is giving you all those details, what you can do, everything with the L2 VPN. Now, I have simplified it and said that for my actual service, that what I want to deploy in my case, this is, this is my model. So I am doing one model above that. Exactly what you're mentioning is that I have the technical part, which gives me the full flavor of it, but I'm reducing it to what I need. And then what I'm essentially then use it, to combine it is that instead of doing it on a device-by-device model, I'm looking at another service like a topology and making sure that my desired service model is matched with my topology model, and then some, the information that is provided inside in the provisioning information is correct.
Okay, clear. The hard one, who should be developing these models?
The technical models, the technical service models, ideally would be led by the operators, and with the vendors, providing support, how to plug in certain device models into it. So, there are some initiatives out there already like OpenConfig, but they're mainly focused on the abstracted device models. And the idea is how we could move that up using those device models to create services.
Okay, thank you.
Benoit?
I'm Benoit, and I will be speaking with my IETF Ops AD hat on. And to answer Ignace's second question, it's a fact. They must be done by operators. As we discussed the last 2 days at the IETF, the L2 VPN and L3 VPN were done by operators. We don't want to have the vendors to just expose all the knobs there. Now, since those should be done by operators, I would like to understand from the people here if there is some value to have a kind of standard way of having like those service models. And then which ones, right? Because we've been having like two very generic one, L2 VPN, L3 VPN, but I have people also telling, I would like to have this service, you know, security related, a very simple policy. And I'm wondering, does it make sense to try to standardize those? Because by the time we do, the service have been evolving, right? That's one issue. The second issue is that I'm hearing some people telling, yeah, it should be nice to have those service models somewhere. But when I speak to some operators, they're not going to share their model, right? So in the end, I'm wondering, it's a tough situation, right? It's also why we put this young catalog there where people could just even push their service model if they want to, but the operators don't do it. So, you know, I want to get some feedback from the room here.
Just a short one. So the whole point with the data models, when you have them and you can get schema-driven APIs, is that you can write different business logic how to, you know, create the end service. But you don't have to create, you know, every single time the full configuration. You already can create the right abstractions that you need to deploy that service. And then you can assure that service will be correctly deployed with the increased automation, because you are verifying that information with other services that are running in your network and making sure, you know, that you're passing the right information. So
you should not try to convince me that having model is good, right? We know that.
Okay.
Now, what about the feedback from the room, if there is like interest to get more standardized service model or not? And then which ones?
Yeah.
Justin Sewer, North Networks. So there's semantical question to this. You could build a model, service model that represents what your network is doing, and this is what OpenConfig is doing. Or you could take a model and try to represent business logic as coming from OSS BSS layer. And these two are somewhat difficult to combine. So finding the right mix, I believe, would define the success of service models. And we really need feedback from operators. I mean, we know what vendors are doing. We know how to map today's L2 VPN configuration to YANK model. 30 minutes work. However, applying business logic to a service model is much more complicated thing, and we really need help here in ATF.